Breaking news today. The repercussions of Prigozhin's departure on Wagner Group. The fate of Wagner Group is uncertain following the presumed death of its top field commander and chief Yevgeny Prigozhin in a fiery plane crash. It is expected that Russian President Vladimir Putin will exert more and more control over the private military company, which was once a vast empire and has helped prop up authoritarian regimes in several African countries and played a significant role in Russia's invasions of Ukraine, according to analysts quoted by The Hill. Putin and his military officials will have to decide which members of the group will be retained and which will be cut, as well as how discipline will be maintained among the mercenaries. Wagner will be less of a challenge for Moscow to control, according to John Hardy, FDD's deputy director of the Russia program, because, with Prigozhin, Utkin, and other top figures out of the picture. In an analysis he sent to The Hill, he said, but without its core commanders, it won't be the same organization. As a result of their deaths, some Wagner soldiers may lose faith in the military as a whole. There are thousands of mercenaries stationed all over the world, and the Kremlin may want to get rid of them. Transnational Threats Project Program Manager and Research Associate at the Center for Strategic and International Studies Katrina Doxy, however, predicted that significant shifts were unlikely. It's really in Russia's best interest to allow all of that operational infrastructure to continue with as little disruption as possible, she said to The Hill. Russia's foreign policy in many of these regions now relies heavily on the extensive network that Prigozhin established. Doxy, however, predicted that Russia would eventually try to limit Wagner's autonomy from the state and weaken its preeminence. It will be an effort to ensure tighter collaboration with the Russian government, tighter oversight, she said, and likely a push toward diversifying the general marketplace for mercenary firms. Regardless of Putin's intentions, it appears that Wagner Group officials and fighters are grieving the loss of Prigozhin and co-founder Dmitry Utkin, a highly regarded battlefield commander. The name of the collective comes from Utkin's military codename during his time in the Russian armed forces. Wagner Group affiliated Telegram accounts spent the days following the news's release eulogizing both men and blaming the plane crash on the Kremlin. Biden administration officials have said this incident is in line with Putin's pattern of silencing critics, and the United States believes an internal explosion forced the plane down. Russia is still investigating the crash. On Friday, the Kremlin said it had nothing to do with the crash. On Friday, representatives for Wagner said they were still awaiting instructions from higher-ups. They wrote, "First, it is important not to act on emotions in such a situation. You need to formulate a clear plan of action. Second, we have to do a good job of redistributing duties. Thirdly, we could all use some reflection time." Although there have been rumors that Wagner may attempt another march on Moscow, military experts have stated that the private company does not have the resources to launch a counterattack and is more concerned with maintaining its global operations. Charles Kupchan, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, declared, "It's game over. I don't believe Wagner has the resources, credibility, or influence to mount another challenge without its leadership." The apparent death of Prigozhin would have a destabilizing effect on the company, the United Kingdom's Defense Ministry wrote in an intelligence update on Friday. His personal attributes of hyperactivity, exceptional audacity, a drive for results, and extreme brutality permeated Wagner and are unlikely to be matched by any successor, it wrote. Since June, when Prigozhin began and then quickly ended a mutiny against Moscow, Wagner's fate has been uncertain. The warlord was supposedly shuttled in and out of Russia despite being exiled to Belarus as part of a truce with Putin. Wagner's network in Mali, the Central African Republic, Sudan, Syria, and Libya is in jeopardy because of the uprising. These are countries that Russia considers allies and where it has gained lucrative security, oil, gold mining, and other contracts in exchange for providing fighters. Putin had been sending signals for 2 months prior to Prigozhin's crash that he intended to wind down Wagner's capabilities and prepare the groundwork for new ownership. In June, the Russian leader publicly acknowledged that Wagner had been supported by the state for the first time and ordered the company to hand over its heavy weapons. He also mentioned that the Russian government would be looking into allegations of theft committed by Prigozhin's catering company, Concord. Putin has also refrained from condemning Wagner's soldiers, releasing them after the mutiny. In order to end the standoff between Prigozhin and Putin as the mercenary chief marched on Moscow, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko negotiated the relocation of a large number of Wagner fighters to his country. On Friday, Lukashenko claimed that as many as 10,000 mercenaries were already present in his country, with plans to remain for as long as we need this unit. According to Belta, Lukashenko said, "PMC Wagner lived, PMC Wagner lives, and PMC Wagner will live in Belarus regardless of anyone's wishes to the contrary. Prigozhin and I devised a plan for housing PMC Wagner in Belarus." Putin may benefit from the Belarusian relocation if it allows him to keep troops stationed there for the time being as the war in nearby Ukraine continues. Council on Foreign Relations expert Kupchin predicted that the Kremlin would develop a hybrid structure that would give the state apparatus better insight into Wagner's activities. A mercenary army can sometimes become sufficiently powerful and autonomous that they turn against the center, as Kupchin put it. Putin has learned his lesson and is not going to allow Wagner to continue to exist as a standalone mercenary army.